An empowered woman to me is somebody who's true to herself, a confident woman who knows who she is, what she wants, and isn't afraid to go after it.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman Podcast, the #1 show on visibility strategies for women entrepreneurs. If you want to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice and business, you're in the right place. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marcia Spurk, and I'm your host, professional singer and visibility strategist. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. One thing I don't talk about enough is the impact podcasting has had on my professional life and how it opened so many doors for me. So if you want to start a podcast or you want to level up your current one, then you need to work with my podcast strategist, Juliana Barbati. She owns a podcast marketing and production agency, and her team takes care of everything from editing and optimizing to scheduling for you, making this process a breeze for you. She's seriously the best. All her info is in the show notes. You can go to julianabarbati.com and tell her I sent you.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yay, of course. Well, I'm super excited to dive right in and get to know you and all the amazing things you've done in building your business. So why don't you tell us more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks everybody for tuning in and taking a listen or a view of the video. So my name is Amanda Dorenberg. I am the president of COMMB, which is the Canadian Out-of-Home Marketing and Measurement Bureau, and additionally the CEO of Billboard magazine in Canada. So background is predominantly in media, technology, ad tech, and all fun things relative to those spaces.
Amazing. Well, I am super curious to hear the story behind all that and how you got into all of this and starting up these businesses. Tell us more.
Oh, how far back do you want me to go?
However far back you want to take us.
So interestingly, probably not your typical journey into media or advertising space. I graduated high school when I was 16 and moved out of my parents' house, ended up putting myself through college for computer programming and systems analysis.
Wow.
So kind of a nerd. I really needed to find a job that was going to be high paying as soon as I graduated, but I worked full time as a fashion model as well while I was going through school. So that exposed me to some really interesting areas of opportunity in the marketing space, the media space, and I got to network with some really talented creatives. And by the time I was 18, I had graduated college and decided I wanted to further my marketing knowledge and insight. So I took a bachelor's degree in marketing, media, and communications as I was still continuing to be a fashion model. I was signed with one of the largest global modeling agencies, so IMG Worldwide and Elite. So really fun experience to be in the fashion space and to learn the media space from there. And after my university degree, I decided to open an artist representation agency. I represented photographers, DOPs, like directors of photography, videographers, and I placed younger models, like new aspiring models internationally. So we had talent all around the world in Shanghai and Milan, Paris, Madrid, LA, New York, of course. And so I was really heavily ingrained in that space. So marketing, advertising, but just kind of on a different realm. So in front of the camera, behind the camera, working with the creatives, which was so fun. It was such a great experience. Learned a lot about how campaigns are even ideated and built. And so that was really great. When I was 27, this is where my career trajectory sort of changed. I was on set at a photo shoot that I was a model at, and I had a brain aneurysm. So I ended up having to close my businesses, and I took about 2 years to recover and sort of shifted gears into something that at the time I didn't have to travel as much, something a little more stable. And so I moved into out-of-home advertising, and that was my first start within the space. And I was part of a startup company that we built here from 2011 through to 2015 when we sold to Bell Media. And then I joined as a partner at another startup firm in the digital out-of-home space, building some ad tech products specifically. And we sold to Outfront Media in 2017. And I stayed at Outfront for about 18 months. I was their youngest executive. And I was 34 at the time, I believe. And then I left after 18 months. I went into blockchain, built a couple of products and some companies there. And at that time, I was solicited by the board of directors at COMMB to help transition into more of a digitally centric organization with very heavily data-driven products and services. And so I took over as president in 2020, right during the pandemic in the remote era. So that was fun. And at the same time, I'm an entrepreneur by nature and deep at heart. So I was part of some other companies, and we also launched Billboard magazine here in Canada. So my business partners and I own it, and we launched in October of 2023. So a lot. I don't know where we want to go from here.
No, this is, my brain was like, okay, which direction are we taking? Because there's so much there to unpack. Starting with even you saying you graduated early and you put yourself through college, like that already shows the beginnings of the journey of everything else that you just shared. And even after having a health situation come up, that did not stop you, at least not for very long. You got back into it and have been involved in so many different things. I resonate, obviously, in some capacity with being involved in so many different things because I'm always pulled by different desires and passions that I have. And usually people are asking me, how many hours do you have in your day? How many hours do you sleep? What's going on? And when I hear stories like yours, I'm like, there's lots of us out there. So I think I do want to talk about more specifics on the business that you have now and, how you support people, what are the ideal clients and all of that. But I do want to dive into more of the mindset or even the mechanics, I guess I should say, of connecting with so many different people and being exposed to all of these different opportunities. Because I feel like many times entrepreneurs, maybe because they're getting started or they don't have that diverse mind, maybe to be as resourceful as some other entrepreneurs are. And that's why they give up early too in being like, this is not for me or whatever it is. Yeah. But they tend to not put themselves in situations that will facilitate these connections. And it seems to me like you put yourself in so many different situations that facilitated all of that. So I'd love for you to speak on what do you think really facilitated you being involved in so many different things and starting up businesses, being a part of startups? Was it just being in the room with these people or is it your personality? Tell me more.
I think it has a lot to do with personality type, but also there's a level of curiosity. So I tend to get bored really quickly. If I'm not doing a lot of things, if I'm not mentally learning and trying to just understand different situations, understand how people are motivated, why people are motivated in an entrepreneurial perspective, I'm just curious about a lot of different areas. I'm curious about business. I'm curious about tech, having that background. I'm curious about finance and the VC space. So I just inherently would put myself in situations where I was learning because at the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know. So if you're not putting yourself in a position where you're learning something new, then you're not really exposed to these opportunities or individuals who could potentially become partners or help you fund your idea if you're an entrepreneur. And so for me, it was really just inherently being a curious person by nature. So that's why I say I think it has a lot to do with personality. Yeah. But also personal drive and personal growth. Like everybody's motivated by different things. I'm not somebody who's motivated by money. So I was never somebody who's, I want to go and get rich. I would go and learn a lot. And I'm motivated by experiences and by building great teams around me that can help facilitate the ultimate goals. And I think when you shift your mindset away from certain motivators that can be very distracting, particularly like the fiscal side of things, I've found most of the entrepreneurs who are some of the most successful and likely some of the most wealthy aren't driven by money. It came because they followed their passion and they were actually like really driven by the subject matter that they were looking to explore or their business that they were building. And I think sometimes we as humans just get distracted by some of the shiny objects.
Yeah, definitely. No, this is great insight and also advice for people that may be feeling stuck is getting more curious, being open to learning more, and paying attention to your motivation. So what is motivating you? And maybe if it's something that's actually being more stressful than fun, because that's what curiosity should take us, right?
Yeah.
Having fun. If it's stressing you out in terms of like the income goals and everything, really diving deep into your interests. Because I mean, in everything that you shared is you becoming interested about something, which is that curiosity, and just going for it, not thinking, wow, this has nothing to do with my degree, or this has nothing to do with anything else.
It's a passion. And I find if you follow your passion, you really, it sounds so cliche, but you're not working. You know what I mean? Like, because you love what you do, you're not working. It doesn't feel like work. So I think the question that you said before, like when people were asking you, how many hours a day do you sleep? Like, it doesn't really matter because you're so passionate about what you're doing. And it doesn't feel like work. Yes, it is work. It's my career, but it's also what I'm passionate about. So if I sleep for 2 hours or 6 hours, it doesn't really matter. I'm still passionate about what I'm doing. So I don't know. I think that curiosity and that passion will lead to great success if you actually hone in on what it is that you're really passionate about, and then network. Put yourself in these positions where you're able to have conversations, where you're able to pick somebody's brain, find a mentor. I've had amazing mentors throughout my career where we'll just have an hour conversation. I can pick their brains and vice versa. And I mentee, I suppose, a lot of young entrepreneurs, which to me is great. And I feel like, once again, it's something I'm passionate about. So a lot of people ask me, like, you don't have a lot of time in your day. How do you find time to talk to a student? And I make time because at the end of the day, they have a drive. There's a spark that's in them that I can see that I want to help inspire. Yeah.
That's so true. Networking, very important too, because it's the part you said about getting curious about things, but then there's so much power in the interaction with other humans.
Yeah.
Whether it be mentors or peers or just having conversations with people, because it'll spark other ideas for you as well. Oh, maybe this is something I need to pursue. I hadn't even heard about this, but this person introduced me to this. And then you pursue that as well. Cool. Love that. Well, tell us more about Billboard. How does it all work? What is your part in it? Tell us more.
So I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Billboard Music Magazine here in Canada. I am the only female CEO under the Penske umbrella of Billboard globally, and the youngest as well. So very proud of that for anyone who's an aspiring entrepreneur. My business partners and I had been working on this deal for probably 18, 19 months prior to it coming to fruition. So there was a lot of negotiations, a lot of discussions. We worked very closely with our US counterparts. And I think because from a North American perspective, Billboard Music Magazine has it's an icon. You know what I mean? Like it's a legendary publication. We wanted to ensure that we weren't cannibalizing any potential opportunities with the United States. From a content perspective, we were really ensuring that both parties, the owning parties in the States and here in Canada, ensured that the ethos aligned together. And so that's why we spent a great deal of time getting to know one another. And of course, these negotiations certainly take a great deal of time. But we launched our first cover October 5th of 2023. And we took a bit of a different approach from a Canadian lens. We could have had any one of the major Canadian stars, music stars, Celine or The Weeknd or Drake, Bieber. We could have gone that route where it was like the major A-list celebrities. But our goal is really to provide a platform for emerging talent who have a great following, but could be in a genre that may be somewhat undiscovered on the international plane. And so we launched, our first cover was called the Punjabi Wave. And so we had 5 of the largest Canadian Punjabi artists all on the cover. And you can imagine how difficult that was to coordinate getting 5 of these massive artists from labels to agree to be on one cover together. So we ended up doing 6 covers. Actually, one had the whole gang, all 5 artists on it. And then each artist had their own cover that was launched as well. And so we're very proud of that. We're very excited. We had our second cover at the end of 2023 with Tate McRae, and we're working on another cover. I can't say with whom, but we're very focused on ensuring that the Canadian talent gets an opportunity to be seen on an international scale. Wow. So because of my background in the out-of-home space with COMMB, we partnered with a lot of out-of-home companies on an international scale. We had the largest billboard in Asia, which is in Mumbai. They had our magazine cover on their billboard.
Amazing.
It was frankly a really good case study as to how well online advertising and online content specifically works with offline content and offline advertising, such as out-of-home, which we really enjoy. And my background, I love that because it bridges the two passions that I have of some of the traditional advertising, but bringing new emerging technology into traditional ad spaces with the online content media and ad space.
Yeah. Well, and it's very nice. I love that. And I love all the different ideas and the focus on highlighting not so many A-listers and giving opportunity for other artists to get seen. And you touched on something that I'm curious about, because more and more with the digital age and so many digital magazines and things, that how has that been? I know it's recent since you launched, but with having something in print and then having something digitally, what are you noticing and what are the trends in terms of people consuming content?
So right now we launched as a pure play digital. So we're not doing any print at this time. Not to say we won't do print. We will do special edition, like collector's edition print. But the crux of the content is digital magazine. So it's an online magazine. And then a lot of our content is consumed through various sort of push channels. It depends whether it's a B2B or a B2C audience, because Billboard does both. We have a massive following from the industry overall. So it could be the label executives, et cetera. They tend to consume our content from a pull, if you will. So we're pushing content to them. It just lands within their inbox. It's a subscription model kind of scenario. Okay. Whereas the general consumer is really engaging with the social content, with the website. So there's different avenues depending on the actual target audience, whether they're B2B or B2C. And I think that if the audience listening is looking to break into the content space, you really need to understand your demographic and how they like to engage with specific content, what the history is with your industry, and how the executives, the mid-tier up to C-suite, tend to like to consume their content, because it's very different at different levels. And then that completely differs than the consumer audience. So I think we spent a great deal of time really understanding the various different audiences that we have. And for example, in the Canadian space, Quebec is a French-speaking province first, so Francophone first. And all of our content within that particular audience demographic is served up, obviously, in French first. But all content across Canada, of course, is available in both French or English. And so we really had to study a lot to understand how the various different audiences, whether it was a business audience or whether it was a consumer audience, were consuming the content.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely different times these days, but people are consuming content. That is true. That is for sure.
Definitely true. Yeah. Even on our socials, Instagram alone, we have 2 million uniques on a monthly basis. And that after 3 months, barely 3 months of launch, is huge.
Since I focus so much on visibility, I know of the importance of being featured in different spaces, whether it be print, digital, or different formats, like getting interviewed on a podcast, speaking at an event, or even being featured in a publication. Even though you focus specifically on music and artists, I would love to hear from your perspective, since you know about this, when somebody is looking to get featured into, even if it's a digital publication, what are some of the things that people can be looking for and how can they get involved? Obviously, you wouldn't know of other companies, but just in general terms. And if you have the opportunity, even for artists based off in Canada that want to get involved, what are some of the ways?
I think there really needs to be a compelling story. So it's not always about the number of plays that I have, the number of likes that I have, the number of streams that I have, particularly on the music perspective. For context, I also write for Forbes, Rolling Stone, Fast Company, and Entrepreneur magazines. There's a lot of pitches that come across my desk, and the most compelling ones are the true, genuine stories. Like, how did you get to where you are? What is it that drives you? What are you passionate about? And it's not about buying followers, because we can see right through that. That simple scroll through your Instagram or your TikTok or whatever other social platforms that you're leveraging. We can identify if these are paid accounts or paid likes or paid this. So whilst that worked probably 3 to 5 years ago, unfortunately, that's not working now. It's really got to be about compelling content and your story. So what is your brand story? What are you trying to put out into the marketplace? And it has to be authentic. I think that one of the challenges with particularly artists trying to break into the music scene or the art scene or the whatever art space, they've come up with this thought process of a persona, but it may not be as authentic to who they are at the core. So I would really encourage everyone to truly be authentic and to share your authentic self. I think the Punjabi wave cover is a perfect example of that. Everyone was so true to their core, to their culture, to their passion. And they had a beautiful opportunity to be featured on a cover, but they're also wildly successful internationally. And any one of the artists, like Karan is one of the largest Punjabi artists globally. And his recent album has, I think it was number 7 on the US charts. So there's a lot of opportunity here if you stay true to your authentic roots and you share your story, and you don't have to compromise on who you are to get to where you want to be.
I love that. And this goes for anything, like you said, even the other publications focusing on how genuine the story is, and not necessarily selling yourself, but showcasing the story. That's huge. I love that. Well, back to you saying you're the youngest and the only female CEO, which is super encouraging and very much up my alley here on the Empowered Woman. What is, I think, the biggest challenge, and maybe you could speak to yourself in the different industries that you've been in, or even that you see that women struggle with, and your best advice as you're growing a business or getting started?
I think inherently there's a lot of male-dominated industries, and that can be intimidating. So I think for young females or females of all ages, we need to stay true to who we are and to our worth. We need to know our value. We need to know what we bring to the table and not be afraid to say, I actually know this, or I don't know this. I think one of the most endearing things that I've witnessed, whether it be from females in leadership roles or from males, is they will gain more respect and trust when you actually are humble enough to say, I'm not sure about this. Let me ask my team. Let me get back to you. And I think sometimes as women, when we're surrounded by men who are perceived to know everything and be so dominant, it's hard for us to say, well, I'm not sure about that. Let me get back to you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that in my personal experience has earned me a great deal of trust. And the level of transparency when I'm able to say, no, I actually am solidly an expert on this particular topic, but I don't know anything about this other particular topic. You inherently gain a different level of trust within that. And ultimately, when you gain that trust, you're afforded a few more opportunities because doors open. People feel like they can actually have an honest communication or conversation with you. And so I think it's truly understanding your strengths and your weaknesses and not being afraid to say, I am an expert in this at a table full of either men, women, doesn't matter, or I am not an expert in this. Perhaps somebody else may be better suited for this. It's better to back away from something you're not an expert in than to take it on and fail, because at the end of the day, you're going to be judged on the results of your work. Not to say failure is not a good thing, because I actually think failure helps us learn. And certainly I have failed in projects and in companies that I've tried to launch. But I will own that and say, hey, I tried to do this and it wasn't successful, but here's what I learned throughout that process. So we have to be objective with our skill sets, our passions, but also the areas that we weren't successful in, and understand what we took away from that learning experience. Yeah. And the more honest we are with ourselves and the more honest we are with those around us, whether they are of any ethnicity, gender, et cetera, it will allow people to trust you more and inherently provide more opportunity, in my opinion.
Totally. I'm so with you on the failures and finding lessons in everything. There's always lessons, right?
There's always a lesson in failure.
Yeah. Well, I think you sort of already answered my multi-million-dollar question of the show, but I will ask anyway. Right. Amanda, what is an empowered woman?
Oh, an empowered woman to me is somebody who's true to herself, a confident woman who knows who she is, what she wants, and isn't afraid to go after it. It's somebody very true to herself and isn't willing to compromise her values, her core, her ethos. And that's an empowered woman to me.
Yeah. And based on everything you shared with us, I suspect, no, I know you're an empowered woman because you just described yourself going forward and doing all of the things. Well, tell us more how people can find the magazine and anything exciting coming up on the horizon for us to look forward to.
Absolutely. Social platforms, Billboard CA, so short form for Canada, website billboard.ca or ca.billboard.com. And you can find me on social medias platforms just at Amanda Dorenberg, and they'll link out to Billboard and to my other companies as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. Such an inspiring, empowering story. And I look forward to checking out all the content.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you.
And if you've enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.